Back in October, the 1080 version 13 instantly became one of my favorite cushioned premium daily trainers. And now, 4 months later, it's still one of my favorite shoes for logging everyday runs. So it's time to lace up these shoes one more time and talk about the 1080 version 13 after 100 miles. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kofuzi and I'm a non-elite runner who reviews shoes here on YouTube. And today I want to talk to you guys about the New Balance 1080 version 13 after 100 miles. But before I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that New Balance sent to me for the purpose of review, so I did not have to pay for these shoes. However, no one's paying me to make this video or to include their shoe in this video, and no one's going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So, with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about how these shoes have been holding up after 100 miles. And for these update reviews, I do a little bit differently than my initial reviews. In this video, I'll talk about how I've been using the shoe in case it's changed over time, how the shoe's physically been holding up, and then I'll update any pairing recommendations and buying guide and alternative recommendations at the end of the video. So let's start with how I've been using the shoe. I've been using the shoe pretty much as a daily trainer. The 1080, for those of you who've been following the franchise for years, started out as a max cushion shoe, but slowly but surely, year over year, it's been converting into like a cushion premium daily trainer. And this year, I feel like the 1080 version 13 is just solidly in the daily trainer category. Yes, it's extra comfortable. Yes, it's extra premium, but it's still a daily trainer, and that's how I use it. I just love it for everyday runs. And for me, that's my usual 8 to 10 miles of easy running, sometimes throwing some strides in there, every once in a while going a little bit longer than that. But anything that's kind of in the easy range is something that I love taking the 1080 version 13 out for. Now, I don't really consider this shoe a max cushion shoe anymore, and maybe that's because of the time we're in 2024. Max cushion just means something even more extra than what the 1080 13 is providing. But even when I do try to use the 1080 version 13 in 2024 as a max cushion shoe, it still does a pretty good job of that as well. For recovery runs, those first few miles after a really tough workout the day prior, the 1080 13 is really nice and cushioned and soft and very comforting for those first few creaky miles. And the foam is still very much a Fresh Foam X type of experience, but it's very much updated, as I mentioned in the initial video. This version of Fresh Foam X seems a little bit lighter and a little bit bouncier than prior versions have felt to me. Previously, it kind of felt like there was more kind of like impact absorption to the Fresh Foam X than there was like a dynamic squish and decompression. But this time I just really like the way that the foam works in the 1080 version 13. Not only does it absorb impact well, but it just springs back in a very pleasant and fun way that makes logging in those everyday runs such a pleasure. And as far as the upper goes, it feels great and luxurious without being puffy, which is always a balance that's difficult to strike for a lot of brands, but New Balance does it extremely well here. And also, I think the shoe looks pretty nice if you're gonna wear it around casually. Now let's talk about how the shoe has physically been holding up though. Let's start with the upper since we're already there. I feel like it looks great. It has a little bit of staining on it because it does have 100 miles in it after all. But as far as wear and tear goes, it doesn't hardly look like the shoe's been used that much at all. Everything's holding up really well. It's still very comfortable. The foam in the padding of the upper is still really nice and plush. So everything on the upper is holding up really well. On the midsole, I'm seeing about the kind of wear that I would expect to see at 100 miles for a foam of this type, and the foam feels fantastic. I can definitely sense that it's not quite as vibrant as it was fresh out of the box, but I also don't feel like it's kind of deteriorating or compressing in an accelerated manner by any means. So I feel like you're gonna get a lot of fun miles out of this shoe. Fresh Foam X has always been known as a more durable foam, and I think that's gonna continue even with the changes to the formula that we saw in the 1080 version 13. Moving to the outsole, that's where we see the most visible signs of wear, and I'd say that this is pretty standard from what I've seen from not only the 1080 series but also from New Balance shoes. I feel like the New Balance outsole rubber is soft and grippy. It does tend to wear down just a little bit faster, but nothing that's going to really alarm me as far as the wear and tear goes on this shoe. There's certain spots that are wearing down faster than others, but those are normal kind of high traffic areas that I tend to see more wear, and that's in the pads of the feet and on the outer side of the heel for me. And I'm seeing a little bit of that here, but nothing that causes me any concern, nothing that looks unusual at the 100-mile mark. So while I do think that the rubber is gonna go first before the midsole foam does on this shoe, it's not because the rubber isn't durable. I think that's more just because the foam here is going to last for a very long time. So now let's update some of the pairing recommendations and the buying guide. In the first video that I made about the 1080-13, I gave you guys pairing options of the Topo Cyclone 2 and the Endorphin Pro 3. And I still think those are really good pairing options, but let me give you two more. I think if you're using the 1080 version 13 as your max cushion and daily trainer, I think you're gonna need like a tempo day shoe for your faster workouts and then something to race in. For those shorter, faster workouts, let's take a look at the Takumi Sen 10. This is one of my favorite shoes for running marathon workouts or racing short distances. It's really lightweight. It has race caliber foam in there. It's got energy rods to make it nice and snappy, but it's not something that I could take for a full marathon race distance. So for anything that's shorter and faster, that's a shoe that I love to reach for. And then for racing, I think that you should pair the 1080 version 13 with the SC Elite version 4. I feel like this makes a lot of sense. They're all in the New Balance family, and this is a lightweight Piba racing shoe with a carbon fiber plate that's going to make it nice and snappy as you chase down those marathon PRs. And all three of those together, I think, are going to make for a really nice set for a marathon training block. Now let's look at the buying guide and some updated recommendations. 4 months later, I was kind of hoping that we might start to see the 1080 version 13 on sale or start to see it on discount because it retails at $165. I don't love the $165 price point, and I don't even really love $160, although that seems to be where all the kind of like premium daily trainer or max cushion shoes tend to be kind of sitting at in the marketplace these days. And in the first video that I made about the 1080-13, I gave you the alternatives of the Triumph RFG and the Deviate Nitro 2. Those are still good alternatives. Let me give you two more to consider that could possibly save you a couple of bucks. The first one that I'm gonna talk about is the Nova Blast 4. I feel like these two shoes definitely compete. They have a fun daily trainer midsole foam in here. They are on the more cushion side. Nova Blast 4 is a bit bigger of a shoe. There's more heft to it, but I do find like it's still a very fun shoe to run in. Both of these are near the top of my list of my favorite shoes at the moment, but the Nova Blast 4 still, although it's at full price, it comes in at $140. And then the other shoe that I would take a look at if you're interested in the 1080-13 is also in the New Balance family. It's the Rebel version 4. Now, with the changes to the Rebel 4, I feel like these two shoes are getting closer than they've ever been, which is kind of counterintuitive, but I think that these shoes both occupy the daily trainer spot in parallel lineups in the New Balance kind of garage, if you want to think of it that way. There's a whole series of fresh foam shoes, and there's a whole series of fuel cell shoes, and these are two different types of foams, and they're even more different this year with the introduction of a Piba EVA blend in the Rebel version 4, but it's become a wider and more stable shoe, and ultimately I feel like it's a little bit less dynamic and nimble than it was in its prior version. And so I feel like these two shoes end up kind of matching each other pretty closely. The foams feel different, kind of like the rate at which the foams compress and decompress is a little bit different. The way that the foams respond when you're putting in some pace changes are a little bit different. But in terms of use cases, I use both of these shoes similarly, but the Rebel version 4 at full retail comes in at $140. So again, you'd be saving 25 bucks to go to a regular daily trainer versus the premium daily trainer, the 1080-13. So those are my thoughts on the 1080-13 after 100 miles. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to talk to you over there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?